In you, living now, is a fourth dimension. Our lesson tonight is on the mystical power, the mind power of wisdom or judgment. And the voice of wisdom will speak to you, and you will hear it speak. If you will examine the story of man's unfoldment from cave to cosmos, you will see that in his human condition, man is a hero-worshiping being. We see it all the time in our culture. There's a tendency for us to make heroes of a person if he can hit a certain number of balls over a fence. But all cultures in all parts of the world have been awaiting the arrival of a superhero, a kind of being that can do all the things that we have discovered that we cannot do. And of course, this superhero will have been assigned the role to come and do those things for us because we have believed in him. And while he's doing those things for us, we will sit on the sidelines cheering him on just like we would one of our favorite athletes or the hometown team. Now, if you will examine the movement of man's consciousness from cave to cosmos, you will find that in every culture, something of this kind of thinking has been a part of the evolution of man's thinking. The concept of a super being is accurate, and they do come, but never to save us, only to teach us. And the first lesson that they teach is that we are exactly as they are, except that we are undeveloped, but have the full potential that they have fulfilled or discovered in themselves. And of course, their second lesson is always how to develop that inner potential that we all have. Never ever has one of them sought to be worshipped. You see, salvation does not come through worshiping. Salvation comes by fulfilling the law of your own inner spiritual nature. Did you know that the being that we would worship is the being that we must become? And any advanced person, one who really understands the nature of life, no longer has any heroes, only examples to emulate, to follow. Now, Jesus the Christ is a super person and a master teacher. And he taught that he was not the exception, but the example, the prototype. And he never ever said worship. He said follow, meaning in its root word to emulate. And he taught that we are like him and that his experience is our potential. He taught that the one God is Father of us all, and that God did not create different kinds of children, a few who had it, but most of them who don't have it. You see, he taught that God is spirit or mind, and that God mind is the essence or substance of us all, but he taught that each person being a mind entity must discover their own minds themselves and then take charge, because we've been given dominion in the beginning, but we have not assumed the responsibility of taking charge of our own mind substance. But he taught a system of how to attain the stature that he had attained and the wisdom and the ability to perform in the manner that he did. And the most significant way in which he taught this super system of thinking and feeling was by bringing up to date the ancient wisdom and teaching that goes way back into antiquity, the system that teaches the 12 powers of spirit, or the method by which God's mind works in man. Jesus taught the system of the 12 mind powers symbolically by developing a relationship with 12 men that became known as his disciples. And he selected 12 because that's the number of mind powers that each one of us have. He didn't select 15 or or 9 or 7. He selected 12, and there's a special reason for that. And then he called these disciples forth into action. He awakened them and disciplined them, and then began his ministry of miracles. You see, it was not until after he took this action that he ever performed a miracle. Now, the word Christ means the awakened mind of God in us. And this Christ in us must become aware of itself. That's what the word awake means, becoming aware. Self-consciousness, the consciousness of one's super self, that becomes a super consciousness, a Christ or cosmic consciousness. The message is this: my mind must become responsible, and in that responsibility it must discipline its faculties. It must become wise. And putting aside its foolish notions, begin the process of calling forth its higher or super nature and all of its attendant powers. And that is what we are striving together to do in this series of classes, proving for ourselves that we do have these mind powers. There's only one way that you can prove anything to your satisfaction, and that is to demonstrate that truth in your own life, to have it come alive, first perhaps as an experience inside yourself, but then that's still not enough. That inner experience must in time produce tangible, visible results in your life. You see, you and I don't know anything until we can do it. Until we can do it. And you have a mind, a marvelous instrument of spirit. And you've been told that with it you can achieve, you can experience things that are almost beyond your ability to conceive at this moment, but not quite. That you can produce the results. And you can. You really can. I know you can because I see you doing it. Now, last week we worked with the mind power of strength, represented by Peter's brother Andrew. But before that, we began with the mind power of faith, represented by Simon Peter. And the physical location of faith, as you know, is in the center of the head, and the reminder color is dark blue. Then Andrew, Peter's brother, or co-power, has its physical location in the loins, or the small of the back, the adrenals. And the color that reminds us of Andrew is spring green. And tonight we focus our conscious attention on the mind power of wisdom, or judgment. Discrimination. Wisdom is represented by the disciple James, the son of Zebedee. The physical center for wisdom and judgment is the solar plexus. And the reminder color is yellow. The sun, solar, yellow. Have you seen a small child draw a picture of the sun, and they will reach for their yellow crayon, will they not? Every time. You don't have to tell them. They reach for that yellow crayon. And they'll draw a kind of a circle, and then little arms, rays that shoot out from the center of that circle, and that's the sun. Well, you have a sun center, a solar plexus. And where and what is this solar plexus? Let's turn to the dictionary for a moment. It's the long network of sympathetic nerves and ganglia located in the cavity behind the stomach, informally called the pit of the stomach. It's a center or seat of great wisdom and power. You see, the solar plexus is the seat of the subjective level of mind and is the brain that controls the body wisdom. That network of super intelligently directed functions that you don't have to think about, and over which, fortunately, we have no conscious control, because if we had right now to take control of all of the functions that were happening, those capillaries opening and closing by the billions in us. It's happening right now, and you're not aware of it. And at that same moment, think of all of the other functions that are there, perfectly ordered. Each thing happening in its proper sequence, intelligently directed, and never ever does it occur except that it occurs in the right manner. Now, that so-called brain in the center of your being functions with a wisdom many thousands of times more effective than the level of intelligence that we call the intellect and that we use to conduct our daily affairs. You've heard me say many times that you and I are 30,000 times more intelligent in our stomachs than we are in our heads. And that's the truth, and you can prove it to yourself. This next statement is very, very important. In it is the key or the secret of life. It's the key to the control of this all-important creative phase of your mind. And that key is feeling. Your mind is divided into two activities, or halves, or phases, that are called thinking and feeling. And the objective thinking phase is programmed or controlled by your thoughts, the intellectual process, and by the images, the imagery that takes place in the head, in this part of the mind. But the subjective feeling phase of your mind is programmed or controlled by feelings or what we sometimes call emotions. Now, the feeling phase of the mind is the womb of the mind. It creates and actually produces or gives birth to an outer life situation in toto that is an exact equivalent of your dominant feelings. In other words, as you feel within yourself, so becomes your life without yourself. And the quality of your feelings determine the quality of your life. Now, I have some good news and some bad news. You can develop your super nature, and you can demonstrate a super life. You really can. That's the good news. But to do so, all negative emotions must be dispensed with. All negative emotions must be eliminated or eradicated from the mind. That's the bad news. Why do I say that's the bad news? Well, the last thing that a human being will ever surrender is his or her suffering. Do you think we want to give up our suffering? We want our good to come, and then we'll give up our suffering, won't we? Oh, God delivered to me those happy days and those good times and all that my heart desires, and then I will smile and laugh a bit. But that's not the way it works. I must give up all that negativity if I am to experience my true identity, my super nature, and a super life. A minister called me yesterday. I've known him for a long time, and he said, "Jack, I'm through with suffering." And I said, "Gosh, that's good news." Now, I said, "Don't get me wrong. I'm not at the end of it yet." He said, "But I have given it up as unacceptable and unnecessary." He said, "It's no longer acceptable for me to go through the emotional shenanigans that I have recently discovered that I put myself through with some great regularity. How can I be a teacher if I don't practice the truth?" And yet you and I are all teachers, are we not? By that we are setting an example. Every day of our lives we're setting an example. Have you noticed that when a powerful fear thought comes into your mind, or when you get caught doing something that you should not do, especially when you get caught doing something that you should not do, you get a terrible sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach? Have you had that experience? You can feel it. Have you noticed that a person continually becoming emotionally excited with impatience, fear, ambition, anger, that they will develop stomach ulcers? And this demonstrates the relationship between feelings or emotions and the wisdom or judgment center. How you feel becomes your body's experience. And embarrassment is immediately transferred into the blush, the changing of the skin. And do not doubt for a fraction of a second that how you feel inside yourself at this moment is actually being translated into experiences and events that are yet to come in your life out there. There is a direct connection because you are a mind being. And you and I are responsible, and not until the day that we become large enough to assume that responsibility can life deliver to us that which our hearts desire. Now, on the other hand, all of the positive emotions, such as love and joy and gratitude and peace and happiness, they all feel right, don't they? Deep down inside yourself, you just feel good when you're experiencing any one of them. Have you watched a sunset lately? And let those emotions flow, and it feels so good. Where does it feel good? In your solar plexus. This is where you feel good. You don't feel good in your head. You never felt good in your head in your whole life. You feel good right here in that vibrating center of power, of creativity. Where does a mother carry her child? Right next to her heart in that creative center of activity. And at this moment, you and I are mothering, we are nurturing, we are creating in the womb of our feeling nature experiences that we're going to give birth to tomorrow and next week and next month. And how we feel will determine those events. You see, those positive emotions produce a calming and healing effect not only on the whole physical organism, but they program the mind to create and then to establish outer conditions that are the exact equivalent of your inner state. There's someone that's seated right here close to me, a young man that came in tonight. And it just feels good to be near him. You know why it feels good to be near him? Because he feels good, and he feels good all the time. It's been a long time since I have seen him when he does not feel good. And I asked him how his life was going, but I knew what the answer was going to be. If you ask someone who feels good all the time, what's happening in their life, what will they tell you every time? Every time. Well, everything's going just fine. It gets better and better and better and better. Now, if you ask someone who feels poorly all the time, suffers and cries a lot, ask them what's happening in their life. What will they tell you? Well, yesterday and tomorrow well, the mind power of wisdom and judgment is an actual, living, alive, spiritual entity inside yourself that almost has a personality. It's almost like a person. It's almost like James, the son of Zebedee, would be. And this mind power of wisdom and judgment was represented in the Old Testament, metaphysically, by, guess who? Solomon. And isn't it remarkable that Solomon, the Sol means son, and the name Solomon means son, man, or the solar plexus, person? Solomon was a wise and great judge because he had intuitive wisdom. He had that wisdom that arises in the feeling nature, not intellectual wisdom, but feeling wisdom. And in 1 Kings, it also tells you something else about Solomon. Solomon had 12 officers over all of Israel. Here again, we're back to the 12 powers. He had 12 officers over all of Israel, and Israel stands for the whole nation or the whole person. Israel of you is your whole self. It is the name for your real self. It is another name for Christ. And these 12 officers provided for the king and his household. You also have 12 officers over all of the Israel of you, or your whole self. And these 12 officers or powers will provide for you, the king, the real person, and all of your household, if you are wise like Solomon. Now, what did Solomon have more of than any other thing? Do you remember? Can you guess? Wives. He was famous not only for his wisdom and good judgment, but he had a lot of wives. Some people have questioned his judgment when they... Now, in the Bible, women mean feeling. So when it says that Solomon had so many wives, it meant that Solomon had more feeling. Wow. He had more spiritual feeling. Solomon was a great feeling person. And from those feelings, wisdom and judgment of the spiritual nature could come forth, because this power of the mind has little to do with thinking. Wisdom and judgment are knowing. You know. And you know because wisdom and judgment is the mind power of God. It is God knowing in you. And wisdom, therefore, cannot make a mistake. The kind of wisdom that I'm talking about does not think. Thinking is for children who do not know. It is not for advanced spiritual beings. An advanced spiritual being knows. You shall know the truth. You won't think it, ponder it, or call up a friend and get it. You will know it, and it will set you free. Now, if this is the truth, and it is, would it therefore be wise to say that all of us should become as a little child and admit that we could stand a great deal of improvement in our use of the judgment faculty? Bad judgment is probably the thing that we have most in common. We have a lot of things in common, you and I, but bad judgment leads the list. It has caused the most mistakes that we've ever made. It has caused the most regrets that you've ever experienced, and it has created the most unnecessary suffering that you have experienced in this life. And can you not see that most of the time when you were wrong, when your life simply was not going right, that it was your poor judgment that originally got you into the bad situation? Can you not see that? But someone called me tonight and said, "No, Jack, it was him. He did it." "I am a very nice person," she told me. "He has made me suffer." And I said, "Who selected him? How did he get there? And who is keeping him there?" Well, it took about 15 minutes to answer that. Now, if you and I aren't careful, the very same poor judgment that got us into the jam will come along and try to rescue us. But it will only create a worse condition. It may get us out of that one for a little while, it seems, but in time, we'll be back into the ditch on the other side of the road, and you know that's true. You know it. Now, Jesus warned again and again about the incorrect use of this faculty. You see, actually, it is the non-use of wisdom and judgment that causes our problems. We simply don't rely on spiritual wisdom at all. Jesus said, "He that is within you," this presence within you, "is greater than he that is in the world," meaning that wisdom deep within you is greater than the intellect, which is surface thinking and of the world kind of thinking. The book of Proverbs was written by Solomon, and wisdom is its main theme. Let me read to you from Proverbs, the 3rd chapter. "Happy is the man who finds wisdom, and the man who gets understanding. For the gain from it is better than the gain from silver, and its profit better than gold. She is more precious than jewels. She. Wisdom is called she, meaning feeling. Not he, but she. And nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand, and in her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. Did you hear that? It tells you what will happen if you experience wisdom. In her right hand is long life, and in her left hand are riches and honor, all the things that your heart can desire. But in order to experience her, you must be a pleasant person. Her ways are pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. You can only find her with a tranquil mind, a serene heart. And those who hold her fast are called happy. If you wish to keep her, if you wish to have this experience, then you must become happy, joyous, glad to be a part of life. Isn't that remarkable? Now, a very interesting biblical fact that demonstrates the importance of the wisdom mind faculty is that many familiar verses are quoted as if God is speaking. But on closer examination, you find that wisdom is the speaker. For instance, the 8th chapter of Proverbs, I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently find me. Or, how about this one? Endowing with wealth those who love me and filling their treasures. In other words, wisdom is saying, this power of your mind is saying, if you love me and if you will seek me diligently, I will respond to you, I will love you, I will care for you, I will direct you, I will guide you, and I will change your life. I will supply you all the things that you need and fill your life with treasures, because I know exactly what you need, and before you have called, I have answered, but you must call me. Talking about God? No, about wisdom, which is an active aspect of God, working even now in your own mind, speaking to you. You see, the mind power of wisdom has been speaking to us all the time, trying to get our attention and trying to direct our lives correctly into healthy, happy, wealthy states. This is your heritage, your spiritual birthright. It does not come by being born of your mother. It comes by being born again into an awareness of your true identity. But we don't experience this great wisdom because we choose to use a substitute wisdom or judgment that is really not wisdom at all. It's an accumulation of old ideas and impressions of life that have come from the intellect, which does not know very much. You've heard the expression, well, I was playing one of my old tapes. It was one of my old reactions, my old programmed responses to life. And that's really what we do. We do very little thinking and very little knowing. Most of the time we are merely responding from the same old mechanicalness that is programmed within us. But wisdom is there all the time speaking to us. This is a simple example that I happen to think of at this moment. Today I was busily at work at my desk about 11:30 this morning, working away. My attention was on what I was doing, making these notes. And suddenly there flashed into my mind the name of a person, of a woman who's been coming here for about 3 months. It was like a neon light in my head, and her face was there. There was a picture of her face and that name. In my mind, it happened just like that. And maybe 4 seconds later, I looked up, and she had walked in the church and walked by the doorway to my office. This was intuition speaking to me. It just was carrying to me the message, Jack, this person, the name on the screen of my mind and her face, is here, and she's about to walk by your door. And so she did. And she smiled and I smiled. A simple thing, not greatly significant. But wisdom is speaking to you this way all the time. It will tell you what is about to happen. It will tell you how to avoid any dangers that might be there. It will protect you because it loves you. If you ask it to, it will run your business for you. It knows how to draw to you all the things that you need in your life. It will take you on your appointed rounds. It will make your appointments for you. There's nothing that it does not know. It does not need to think. It knows everything. And all that it knows is yours to experience. And it will implant itself in your consciousness in ways that you cannot avoid if you will but ask it, and if you will separate from the old things that have no meaning or significance in your life. Are you aware of how much of our thinking is motivated by negative emotional reactions to life? Well, all judgment and wisdom or opinions or decisions based on emotions that are negative will ultimately fail. And so will all situations, conditions, and relationships arising from such thinking. And that includes business partnerships or marriage partnerships or anything else that you want to go into. If negative emotion sends you there, in time you will return defeated. And why will they fail? Because they are human judgments, not spiritual, and they're based on appearances and personal reactions only. You see, wisdom is not information. Books, education, and even experience cannot give you wisdom. Information, yes, but not wisdom. As a matter of fact, the first giant step and the most important step in gaining wisdom from within is to let go of our old surface ideas. And the result is nil until we empty ourselves of our previous programming and of the limiting beliefs and personal opinions that we've had about ourselves and about our life possibilities. And Solomon teaches this primary and essential rule for experiencing wisdom when he wrote in 1 Kings, "And now, Jehovah my God, you have made me your servant king instead of David my father. But I am a little child. I know not how to go out or to come in. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart." In the admission of the fact that he knew nothing of himself, he gained access to the universal storehouse of wisdom because he asked for it. To know that there is not enough, one must ask for it. And Solomon, the wise one, asked, "Give your servant wisdom and understanding heart." Our thinking, man's thinking, is problem-oriented and produces problems that produce larger problems. But the master mind is solution-oriented. In it, no problems can possibly exist. And more than that, the master mind is pure joy. In it, no anger, nor fear, nor hatred, nor worry, nor sorrow, nor self-pity, nor resentment, nor apprehension, nor gloom, or depression can exist. Isn't that marvelous? In Matthew, Jesus said, "Judge not, that you be not judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged. And the measure you give will be the measure you get." It sounds so complicated. This is what it means. What you judge life to be, what you see life as, what you pronounce or say life is, and the way that you feel about your life, this will be your experience. Life will bring back to you the experiences that are the duplicates of what you have prejudged life to be. And if you think life is tough, get ready. It will prove to you that you were exactly right. It will create for you a series of the toughest experiences that you can possibly conceive, especially if you start fretting about it. The measure you give will be the measure you get. Now, if you'd like to really make it tough so that you can prove for all time, then worry a lot, feel guilty, remain depressed, don't forgive them for anything that they've ever done, get even, lose your temper regularly, keep a sharp tongue, talk negatively, and carry on long, meaningless conversations that keep you from examining yourself. and then continue to drift through life only thinking of yourself and never ever use a system to develop your mind. Say to yourself, God will take care of me. The measure you give will be the measure you get. Let me ask you some very important questions. Don't answer them out loud, but look at them honestly inside yourself. What is your true judgment or evaluation of life? What do you think about life? Is it pretty good, fantastic, or tough? Doesn't really lead anywhere. What is your judgment or image of yourself as a being? What do you think about yourself? Oh, that's a good one, isn't it? Get your pad and paper out tonight before you go to bed and write down what you really think about yourself. Not what you ought to think, but what you really think about yourself. Now, what is your deep emotional response to life on a continuing basis? Sadness or gladness? Add these factors together. Add them up. And instantly, you will see your outer world. These are the experiences that you have accumulated in your spiritual bank account because this is your pronouncement. This is what you're saying that life is. And no other experience in life is possible until this human judgment is released because you're the judge. And your state of mind, the condition of your body, the condition or state of your life in every detail, these things are all the result of your own judgment. Isn't that great? Isn't it marvelous that no one else has done it to you? Because if they really did, you'd have to go and find him or her and get them to change their mind. And they probably would not want to change their mind. They would like you to be that way. But we have done it. We have sentenced ourselves. You're the judge. And you have sentenced yourself to a kind of experience. And you said, this is the only sentence that is for me. Now, if you've done it, you can change it. But how can you change it? Jesus said, do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment. Meaning, let's stop believing it that our limited experience is all there is. Stop judging yourself by what's happened to you in the past. Let's begin right now to stop believing ourselves to be merely human with no other resources, and consequently, we can only expect a low level of gratification from life. Let's begin to believe right now that there is an omniscient power within that is ready, willing, and able, eager to respond to your needs, already speaking to you this wisdom of the universe has spoken to you, and it has said, I know you. I know you. You are my very own. And you were actually created so that I could come alive in you and so that I could become the traffic director of your life. Omniscience knows, and it knows what needs to be done, and it knows how to do it. Long life is in her right hand, and in her left hand are riches and honor. And remember that wisdom is female, meaning feeling, intuitive. And happy is the man who finds it. Are you ready to find and experience this fantastic power that is infinitely superior to the intellect that has been in charge lo these many years? Are you ready? Then just relax. Let's become open-minded and just as excited as a child. Give yourself permission to become happy because you really believe that something new and exciting is about to take place, and focus your attention at the very top or the crown of your head. This part represents the Christ in you, that part that has dominion, the identity of you that has dominion. The Christ of God is quickened in me. Let's call forth Peter, the disciple power of faith, focusing the attention in the center of the head. I have mountain-moving faith in God and in my good. I say yes to my good. And now the attention goes to the small of the back, the strength center. My disciple, Andrew, representing the faculty of strength. I am strong in my conviction that God is supporting me. Underneath me are the everlasting arms, and I feel myself being supported by God's own strength. And now from the strength center to the solar plexus. It's that place just below your rib cage, the center of your body, the pit of your stomach. Remember that solar means sun, and sun is warm, expanding. Feel the warmth, the radiating, vibrating power rays that are emanating from your own sun center, expanding. This is the center of light and wisdom. It's also the center of happiness and joy. And I make a joyful noise. The sound of happiness. The sound of happiness in me is the feeling that all is well. All is well. The activity of God is taking place in my body and in all of my affairs. Christ in me calls forth James, the son of Zebedee, my son disciple. And the color key is yellow. I can see the sun shining. The Son of God is rising in me. The power of God, the power of wisdom, intuitive knowing. And I believe in the miracle-working power of God producing its miracles in my mind, in my body, and in my affairs. I have a strong feeling that this has become my experience. There's a deep knowing in me beyond my thinking, and I trust this deep knowing in a very personal way. The superintelligence of God, the mastermind in me, knows how to live my life for me in every detail, knows how to solve every problem. Every problem is now solved dramatically, perfectly, for the good of all concerned. Like Solomon, I have become as a little child. I do not know how to go out or come in, but wisdom does. And so I turn my will and my life over to the care of the master intelligence, divine wisdom, right judgment. This is the wisest choice I have ever made, and I am as wise as Solomon in this moment. Like Solomon, I have 12 powers, and God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding beyond measure, and largeness of mind like the sand in the seashore, so that Solomon's wisdom surpassed the wisdom of all the people of the East and all the wisdom of Egypt. And that which God gave to Solomon, that long life filled with the abundance of all things and right activity in every moment, is now my very own. And so it is.